minutes. Here we go.
Okay.
All right.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 2nd meeting of the Capital Improvement Committee. We apologize for the late start, but we had to make sure we had a quorum. So we're ready to begin now. We'll begin with introductions, starting with Brian.
I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Ivan Beliveau, Budget Committee Rep.
Tim Redmond, Planning Board Chairman and Committee Chairman for CIP.
Earl Carroll, Community Rep and Vice Chair for CIP.
Mark Lemay, Board of Selectmen's Rep.
Lowell Von Ruden, Community Rep.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. First order of business tonight will be the minutes from our July 19th meeting. That was a deliberative meeting where we went through everything. It was kind of technical, the minutes. I know they're hard to follow because there's so many numbers mixed up in there. Does anybody have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Earl, seconded by Ivan to approve. Is any discussion of the minutes? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstention? Mark's abstaining.
I was not here, so
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, before we begin our next round of deliberations, we have something new to discuss that Brian is bringing to our attention on the subject of impact fees and the assignment of those funds. So Brian, I'd like to turn the floor over to you to give us an explanation.
Okay, I'm going to just briefly go over the email that's on the top of your packets there that I sent on July 31st to you all. Last meeting, we briefly discussed this, and I mentioned that I would send out the ordinance references regarding this. But essentially, the topic that I wanted to discuss was the assignment of impact fees for capital facilities on the CIP matrix. And in the zoning ordinance, section 16.10.2 states, effective upon passage of this article, the annual updates of the Goffstown Capital Improvement Program shall contain a procedure for assigning funds, including any accrued interest, from all of the public capital facility accounts to special capital improvement projects related to expenditures or debt service. And then 16.10.3 states impact fee monies, including any accrued interest that are not assigned in any fiscal period, shall be retained within the same public capital facilities impact fee account until the next fiscal period, except where a refund is due. So the way I understand that, we're supposed to assign these funds from impact fees that have been collected to capital improvement projects listed on our CIP matrix. And if they're not assigned, then we would have to hold on to them or refund them, whichever is, if a refund is due, then we have to turn them back, obviously. But if we haven't assigned them, then we have to hold on to them until they are assigned.
Brian, would you briefly explain the refund period criteria?
Yeah, the refund period is, and it's in the next section of the email, 6 years from the date it's collected. The monies are supposed to be either encumbered or spent. And if we've failed to do that in that time period, then we give them back to the current property owner.
Okay, thank you, because I didn't want it to be unclear when you're talking about refunds.
So, okay. So essentially, I think in the past, I've seen different areas of the matrix where there's been a note that said, impact fees to be used, such and such amount, on previous matrices. I don't know that there's ever been like a formal process. You know, the way that I read, that 16.10.2 paragraph says, annual updates of the Goffstown Capital Improvement Program shall contain a procedure for assigning funds. To me, that's like, you know, somewhere in the rules of procedure, or I don't know what it is, but we need to somehow have set up a way to assign these funds and then assign them. And then once that's done, then we are able to spend the funds. And so I just want to make sure that we're doing this according to the way our ordinance is written. And so that's why I brought it all to your attention.
If that's the case, Brian, then the next time the CIP committee handbook is updated, and the one I've got is as of January 22nd, 2009, so it's like there hasn't been an update in 3.5 years. It would seem to me that in order to codify in our procedures what is in the zoning ordinance, then something would need to be added to the CIP handbook
As-
insofar as procedure.
As a procedure.
As a procedure.
That's,
Because we do not have a procedure as of this moment, right now, right? Is that
Right.
fair
As far as I know,
statement?
there's nothing in there that
I
talks about this.
Right.
I think up till now, it's been kind of, you know, assign them as needed, and when there's funds available, then we'll put it in the notes saying, yeah, this is available for
And-
spending, but,
And we do show use of impact fees as offsetting revenues.
right. And I think by assigning these funds to, projects, we would be able to, you know, decrease the amount that's shown on the total spending allotment for this year, or
Also,
for any year.
Also, we wouldn't have a significant balance of impact fees hanging around.
Correct.
My concern, and maybe you know the answer, maybe Ivan knows the answer, maybe Mark knows the answer. If we assign impact fees to a particular project, and I'm just gonna say hypothetically, since Rick is here, let's say that we decide that we're gonna take $25,000 of recreation impact fees and let Rick use those funds, quote unquote, for the renovations he wants to do at Roy Park, or at Barnard Park. Say Barnard Park Pavilion. If the Budget Committee or the Selectmen knocks that project out in their review, what happens to those impact funds?
The way I would see it is those impact fee accounts would then be unassigned, or if they just push it out a year and they're still anticipating doing the project, then they would still stay with that until whenever it's done. But if the selectman kills that project totally and decides not to do it, then those funds would become unassigned again and would not be able to be used until the following year.
Must the funds be assigned to a specific project? Or can they just be assigned as offsetting revenue to the department?
I don't believe you can, the way that I read it, it says, shall contain a procedure for assigning funds.
To specific capital improvement
To
projects?
specific, yeah,
So the question that comes up in my mind, Earl, based on what you said, is it the authority of the CIP committee only to be able to assign CIP funds? Or do other committees via the Board of Selectmen have the ability to assign these fees?
That's a very good question, because again, let's go back and take the hypothetical I used. We said to Rick, you got $25,000 of impact fees for the Barnard Park Pavilion. Let's say that project gets knocked out either at the Budget Committee level or at the Selectmen's level. Can either the Budget Committee or the Selectmen reassign the use of the $25,000 to, let's say, the Roy Park tennis courts.
Because they're gonna put that project through.
Yes.
I would say probably it should probably come back to the CIP committee. And if the selectman feels like they need to spend that money sooner than the next year, then they would request the CIP committee have a special meeting sometime throughout, that the CIP committee now doesn't go just from May to September or whatever it is, that they're sort of on call if in the instance there is a need to change around the impact fee spending.
Yeah, because that
Assignments.
could be a major issue if you're
I mean-
faced with some impact fee funds lapsing
Right.
with the potential for a refund.
That's right.
Because and I know and everybody else knows
Nobody wants
that
to,
if we've
hand those
got,
back
again,
over.
I'm pulling some out of my left ear, if we got $25,000 and the budget committee is aware, or the selectmen is aware that this money is going to lapse, they're gonna wanna use it for something and not refund it. Let's be real here.
Use it or lose it.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna press the big hot button right now on national TV. And I'm gonna say that we just heard from the, I think it was one of our selectmen at a previous meeting, and it was not Mark, that the money that was taken out of the impact fees for the rail trail enhancement grant to be the matching money, which is disputed at 79,000 or 59,000, I'm not sure which the total amount was.
I think it was 79.
Did the selectmen have the authority to do that without the CIP committee's authorization?
And if so, what's the remedy?
That's right.
Well, hasn't it been past practice for the selectmen to do that kind of thing?
But if it's
Yeah.
past practice, that's one thing, but if we have a zoning ordinance that was voted on by the townspeople in the town of Goffstown that assigns CIP the authority to designate,
When was this enacted?
2007, December 20th.
Oh,
no, those are just the impact fee. You're looking at the top of the.
It says initiated December 20th, 2007.
I'm
Right,
talking about the
but
zoning ordinance,
For
when
the
that was
zoning
voted in.
ordinance, that was done, I think, back in like 2000 or 2001 maybe, when they,
There's, every year we get so many amendments to the
it's-
zoning and planning
So
ordinances.
the only
that
thing
nobody
that,
can keep track of them anyway.
the only way this committee can assign the funding is to sort of make a blanket statement that we assign the authority to assign the funding to the Board of Selectmen. Because we certainly don't want to put, well, we're going to stay on the Parks Department here. I'm going to go to the sheet that that we were handed. At this
You're gonna
time,
regret coming tonight, Rick.
no, we're not, Rick's not part of this.
I know,
Rick's not part of
I
this.
know. I'm just giving him a hard time.
If what we're hearing is true, impact fees available for Parks and Rec at this time are something on the order of 50,000 plus or minus after the deduction.
55.7.
Well, whatever. Just 50,000 plus or minus. We might say, we would authorize the Board of Selectmen to utilize necessary funding from impact fees to be put towards specific projects with the idea that we would want them to be used prior to them lapsing. But we can't assign 5,000 to the one project and 8,000 another, because I certainly don't want to send this to the selectmen and the budget committee, have them start hashing it out and wanting to change things, and then have to call special meetings of the CIP committee. We put enough time in on this as it is, and I don't think anybody here wants to be on call for the rest of the budget season until March, between you, me, and the wall.
Bingo.
So I think we either have to adopt a program that we give blanket authority to the Board of Selectmen to assign these funds, or we need to have a policy that says that we don't have a policy.
Tim?
Please, Lowell.
The department head who shows
Wait.
up gets the money. Sorry.
Um,
have to be there?
Lowell, please.
The way this is worded is actually fairly poor, but it doesn't, if you read it, says we have to have a procedure. It doesn't say we have to make the assignment.
That's right.
So part of our procedure could be that we do an initial flagging and
Well, it is written somewhat poorly, but if you look at the next paragraph, it says impact fee monies that are not assigned in any fiscal period, so they do
Right,
have
but
to be
it says not
assigned.
assigned, it doesn't say not assigned by CIP.
Even if they weren't assigned by us, they would stay in the fund anyway,
Unless they lapse.
Right.
until the,
Right.
but somebody must be watching the fund clock, otherwise we would be giving money back to these
Right.
people, and I doubt if any money's being given back. Because the fund is the fund, if money came in, it's, the fund is fluid. Money's coming in, money's going out. I doubt if anything is going beyond 6 years. Would you?
That's probably very
There,
true,
there hasn't been any refunds
nor will there ever be.
that I know of.
Right. So,
Because, even you look at this, we're at the end of 2012, June of 2012, which would be anything prior to June of 2006. 2006, we had $60,000 that has now been expended.
I will tell you, the reason why the selectman was asked to release the 59,000 was because there were funds ready to expire. So that was the reason why we put it to the selectmen, and that's, since I've been here, at least that's sort of been the practice that we've had, is to have the selectmen release the funds. But
But
it
you
was
know-
never under my understanding that this was part of the process.
and I
So-
think that's exactly the way it should be, because we all, I don't know about the rest of us, but Earl and I will sit here and we will say over and over, we are not a budget committee. We're a planning committee. I don't want to say, put 20,000 towards the gazebo and 8,000 towards the track and 5,000 towards the Barnard, the playground at Roy Park. I think that's the next step, and I think that's within the authority of the selectmen and the budget committee to make those decisions. I don't think CIP needs to do that. And I think if we have to, as Lowell said, if we have to contain a procedure for assigning funds, we could easily have our procedure be to default to the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee
Our
to make those
procedure- our- Our
assignments.
procedure would be to, every year we vote to delegate our authority to assign funds. to
Maybe-
the-
Maybe we
Delegate
could
is a better
require the submission request to contain impact fees as part of the submission request.
That's a possibility, or we could get a submission request from admin, the Board of Selectmen, for assignment of impact fees, and then we just vote on that, and
Right.
I think that would work too.
I think that would satisfy the wordage. Identify yourself for the record, please.
Rick Wilhelmy, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you,
Rick, why
Rick.
don't you come on up to join us?
You don't have to sit at the center. You can sit in one of the side chairs if you want, or whatever you want.
That's all right. I don't mind. The question I had is, when you just said, have a separate submission for impact fees, in some of our CIP requests, in the language in the write-up, you will say we're gonna use X number of dollars from impact fees to help meet this project.
Mhm.
So that is written kind of in there.
It's on
Have
the
you done that
worksheets.
on any of your submissions,
Yes, he
Rick?
has.
I
believe he has.
think I might have.
Well, I'm looking at offsetting revenues
Actually,
here.
current one's probably not, to be honest.
You have
with
an offsetting revenue on your Barnard Park Pavilion remodel.
Yeah, that's with
And is that
revolving fund.
offsetting revenue a
Revolving.
revolving, okay? But this is where we could satisfy the zoning requirement by having submission forms contain appropriate
Dollar amount.
dollar amounts for impact fees, because the department heads and the administration know when the retirement dates are, or the due date is to be used by. We don't. We don't have.
Maybe you could just have another line in there under offsetting revenues that just says, impact fees or something.
I think we can create a procedure to do this,
Just put it right here.
I think so.
but I don't think I really want to be involved with assigning dollar figures to accounts. I don't think that's our job. We're not ever supposed to assign money. We're supposed to move it around.
Although, again, if you look at the language, bad as it may be, in 1610-2, it says, from the capital facility accounts to specific capital improvement projects, related expenditures or debt service.
Well.
So,
I think we
I
need,
think we can do, I agree, we can do it one of two ways. Either the department head comes in with a request for impact fees assigned, designated, I won't use the word assigned, designated for a particular project, or we get a request from the selectmen through the admin process
to utilize
to utilize,
the funding on these projects
Exactly,
being.
exactly,
Because they have a pretty good idea of what they know is gonna go through.
yeah.
So you wouldn't be up against that brick wall where we would be assigning funds and we don't know where they're going after
Right.
they leave this table.
And I don't think it has to be an either or. You know, you can still
be
have
both.
like the department head, you're right, have the
Be both.
department head submit that, but then the selectmen still basically have final authority.
Correct.
Right.
Brian, would that satisfy the zoning ordinance, in your opinion? If we had a procedure in place?
I'm not sure. I may want to talk to our town attorney and get his opinion on what this implies. I think
Well,
that would be
the
a
next-
good
the
idea.
next-
Will you use, impact fees to pay the legal costs?
No, we have a,
I have a legal line for that.
Brian, let me ask you this question. Would it be better to propose a new zoning article that would remove this language and take the problem away from us completely?
I don't think so, because I think it's important for CIP to somehow be involved in the assignment of these funds. I mean, that's, you know, we're dealing with capital expenditures and capital projects, and how the money is being spent is part of this committee's purview, I think.
Well, it is a
And
way,
and I think it's good to have CIP committee say, okay, this is where we think the best place to spend this money is, even if down the road somebody says, well, no, we think this is better, then, you know, we at least can vet that out, but
it would help us to prioritize them too, Earl, because then we'd know that there was money available for a project through impact fees if
Yeah.
it was deemed an urgent and we needed to really move
Right.
forward with it.
And maybe then it should come in on the submission form.
Yeah, I like the idea of having on the submission form.
So can we put together can we vote on a procedure tonight that would satisfy this, Brian, or do you need to work on some language and check with the town attorney, and then we would have to, does it have to go to a town meeting for a vote if we're gonna change procedures here?
I don't think so,
No.
because it's in the internal procedures handbook, it's not.
right.
Only if we want to change the ordinance, then.
Well, as all voting members of this committee, would it be wrong to have a vote that would be not in a public forum to vote to change that? In other words,
I think
I-
so. I think it would be
I think it's
wrong to
okay.
do.
to be able to just,
To just do it, because it's part of our process.
Well, but we should do it in a public meeting like this tonight, not necessarily in a public vote
What we
meeting,
can do
like
is
at
we
the
can-
town voting, but
what we can do is we can tag team it onto a planning board meeting as an agenda item on a planning board meeting, because since we are a subcommittee of the planning board, we could tag it on if you wanted to have a public hearing or anything like that. I would be there already, and then any members of the committee that are available to come in for that planning board meeting, it wouldn't require scheduling a special meeting to come here on an odd Thursday night for 15 minutes.
Does the planning board approve that, the CIP procedures manual?
I think if you were gonna do that, you would wanna have a quorum of the CIP committee show up, wouldn't you?
Because again, it's a CIP committee vote, it's not a planning board vote.
No, because we're a subcommittee of the planning board.
Right, but we,
But who is it that approves the CIP manual?
I don't know. I've never had that question asked,
I don't
Lowell.
know either.
Because I would think it would be whoever approves that I would think would be the ones to approve.
Well,
I would think
that's
CIP,
this committee.
I
Because it
think
would
the
be part
committee
of
would
that
have to make a recommendation to the planning board for a change in the committee rules and procedures, and then the planning board would either concur or not.
That's,
That would at least cover us
I mean,
legally.
you guys have
I
been on
don't
the
know.
planning board, and
We
you
haven't.
certainly
This-
were both there in 2009,
We've never discussed,
when this thing was, at least the last revision was adopted.
I don't remember having any discussion on this. Do you, Lowell, in any planning board
No.
meetings?
what does it
procedure?
say in the manual?
It just-
Anything about,
Just gives us an adoption date, I don't
it
know.
doesn't say who voted or anything.
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Adopted January, I think it's like anything else. We as a committee adopt it. We adopted something,
We certainly wouldn't have, because we don't sit in January.
we'll have to find out where it was adopted, Brian. You'll bet. Please, Ivan.
We're talking town, but there's a school impact fee side of it too. Now, does this also come from new home construction?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
These are hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Well, they used it
Yeah.
to do the Bartlett addition plans, as I remember. And they authorized it themselves. We didn't
There's-
have any authorization over that. The school board authorized
Why
it.
is the split
But
so hugely different?
then according to this ordinance, should we be having,
What's that, the money?
Yeah, I mean, there's.
Well, just adopt, to start with, all these impact fees are adopted by the planning board after Southern New Hampshire Planning does a report with Brian as
Some,
part of it.
yeah.
And then it goes to a planning board meeting to adopt, and the fees and percentages are set. We recently voted to adopt
Increase.
the increase on the school side, but we also voted to reject the increase on the public works side
On the roads,
and the roads.
transportation.
Transportation. Because we felt I felt as a committee member that the more you shove impact fees onto a developer, the less development the town's gonna see. And if you wanna use that as a growth tool to control growth, then raise the impact fees up to 50,000 a house, and no one will ever build in Goffstown again.
I just don't understand why the school gets more than 90% of the impact fees when they're not that percentage of the town. of
Where did you
the-
come up with
It's
that
not
figure?
90% of the impact fees.
Where'd you get that figure, Ivan?
The funds available per year are,
Well, they're cumulative.
they're cumulative and they get up in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I'd
They,
say,
they do pull in the lion's share of the total impact fee.
Yeah. That's-
They
You have-
raised it to like 6,700 or something, 6,800 for this school portion of the impact fee, and the total impact fee is about 8,800. So there's
so the difference between 88 and,
a couple grand.
so it's
There's 1,000.
It's 75% of it then.
Yeah, it's a little-
2,000, 6,000, that's 75% the school gets. And the other departments
About
get to split the other
75%.
25%, in rough figures. If those numbers
Those
are
aren't the right
represented.
numbers, but it's,
Ivan, Brian can give you the actual charts with the percentages on it. He can get those for you. But the percentages aren't on there.
no,
I
they're not on there.
understand that. But I mean, I understand in 2005, they spent $400,000 from, out of 600,000.
Authorized by Article 2. That was in a warrant article, obviously.
Yeah, plus an additional 186 for expanding parking and fields.
Well,
And the numbers were 2002, 3, 4, they were building from 128 to 456 to 620. I mean, the school side of it, impact fee is huge.
it is.
And
Right, but you can't take that and apply it to something else.
It only can, and are the criteria
Specific to
for
the
using the
school.
impact fees clear, set? It has to be for a new project, it can't be for a renovation. There's some clear parameters for what it can be used for, right, Brian?
Yes. That's all based on state statutes.
Right.
And are we gonna, is the CIP gonna be dealing with the school impact fee?
Yes.
This is why I'd like to defer the thing off to the next levels and let the people at the budget levels handle it.
I don't know that that's necessarily the best alternative, but I do think that, maybe some input from, like, the town attorney would be good to determine, is it okay to assign these to the selectmen, or should it be the,
Well, then, we're gonna need an opinion, because this would be the first time ever that we would have assigned anything. We've always let the selectmen and the school committee decide on their own impact fees. We've never made any decisions. Mark, you have something?
After hearing what Brian had to say, we've debated this for an extended period of time here. We've come to no general consensus. Would you be of the objections that we table this till we hear legal counsel?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's where we are.
And-
Makes sense.
I think that's where we are.
So
Yeah,
that's a
and
mo-
and
if
move
that-
on to the next
Is that a
subject.
motion to table?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to
Second.
table.
I motion by Mark to table, seconded by Ivan. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll all vote. All those in favor of tabling the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So now that'll give you some breathing room.
Abstentions?
That'll give you some breathing room to check. Come
And-
back.
And I would suggest that if you are gonna come back with a requirement for the CIP committee to reconvene, that you would try to do it on a planning board meeting night and make it a part of our planning board agenda to have the CIP committee come in and do that on that particular Thursday night. Probably have to see if we're gonna be able to have a quorum though, right, Earl?
Yeah.
You'd have to make some
You'd
phone
have to
calls,
make
and
sure
make
we
sure
have a
people,
quorum of
make sure people are gonna show up.
CIP people.
Rick,
Can I go back to the CIP thing for process?
we've already tabled
Okay,
we've already tabled the
I know.
discussion, so you
Okay.
can have that meeting, discussion with Brian at a
Right
later
afterwards?
date.
Okay, cool. I just thought of
All right.
something.
Tabled. Before we move on, I'd like to thank Brian for his diligence in looking into this stuff. I'm sure he feels like we've pushed him off, which we have, but I don't want him to think that it was with any malice. We're just-
I don't think so, and I
We just don't
just
wanna
wanna
deal
make
with it.
sure we do it the right way and not,
Well, and that's why I made the suggestion I made. We could sit here all night, we could come up with a decision that we think is right, yet on the other hand, be wrong, and have to start the process all over again. So
All right,
why beat this to a dead horse? We'll get the legal opinions we need, and if in fact he does come back and says, we do need to do something, then we can move on, and we can create the next step and go from there.
okay. At our last meeting, we went through, it was considered a deliberative meeting, we went through all the lines, we did all the priorities. We essentially finished it. We had a couple of callback questions, which Brian asked to have information available about. So I'm gonna turn the floor over to Brian and let us know where we are with the callbacks.
well, the one issue that I think the board really wanted addressed was from Parks and Rec, and that's why we've got Rick here tonight. And that was regarding the Barnard Park track upgrade or whatever.
And pertaining specifically to shared costs with the school or whether they were gonna try to absorb the full amount, is that?
Correct. The
subject?
last time there had been a question of, there's no dollar figure really assigned yet on this. And, should the CIP committee even, consider it if the town doesn't really have a decision as to what they want to do yet? And so, the CIP committee had asked for Rick to come in and try to clarify what do they want to do, and, if there really
Okay.
is a dollar figure that can be associated with
For
it.
those of you who are looking at your matrix on page 5, and it's about halfway down the page, line 193 on the last one. Did it carry over? 193?
193 is the first time for offsetting revenue, so it's gonna be above that, I think.
Well, then they changed lines, because on the matrix, our fourth draft matrix, or was it the fifth draft I'm looking? Fifth draft matrix, never mind. I got them mixed up.
It should be line 191.
Renovation of Barnard Park track.
Oh, no, you mixed up the fourth, and it's all stapled together, but but they changed halfway through.
I don't,
Oh, you had us change it at the meeting, my mistake. It was the fourth draft.
Barnard track. I don't even see.
The last one we looked at, it was on line,
191 is what we got on the new matrix.
it was 193 on the old one.
Yeah, the lines have changed a tiny bit.
Okay, thank you. So we had 25,000 in as a number, and we weren't certain that number was gonna be adequate. So could you please help us
Sure.
out with whatever
Um,
explanation you have available?
Sure. What we've done is over the past few months, we've, I say we, myself, and the commissioners, Principal Frank McBride and Athletic Director Steve Fountain, kind of went out and we got all different kinds of numbers. The Barnard track is in some bad shape, which we know. I got some numbers just to come in and saw cut out all the cracks, fill it with some material, some stone, and put some asphalt down just to smooth it out so it's a smooth transition, roughly about $6,000, okay? Then I got another number. If you do that, You still gotta fill the cracks, smooth that out for about another 25,000. You can come in and put 2 inches of asphalt all the way around, unpainted. You're not changing anything to do with your drainage or anything like that, 25 grand. And then to paint it with lines, that is, that's about $25,000. And we also looked at it and said, okay, fine, we want to fix drainage, we want to, do that type of thing and just put some asphalt down on it, it's $175,000. You want to go and you want to fix the drainage, put down the new material, the stone, et cetera, put down the asphalt, put down the track material on top of it, $300,000. So there's all the numbers. So rationally looking at it and wisely looking at it, what we're saying is the commissioners are looking at using probably $6,000 out of our revolving fund to try and do this, to use the cracks, to fill the cracks and fix that and smooth it out.
Okay?
Then in 2013, take that 25 that you see, that's currently right there, will go towards the 2 inches of asphalt all the way around. And then the school will come in and do the other 25. Now that part, I'm not speaking on their behalf at this moment, all right? I'm just speaking on the discussion that I had with Frank McBride and Steve Fountain. They're gonna bring it to their level. But,
So are you keeping this in as a
Yes.
13 project?
yes,
Because it's moved out to 14 on our new matrix.
if we could go to 13, I think that would be better, Tim.
And 27 is the number, or is 25 the number?
25 is probably the number.
Right, so it's gonna remain as it was on our 5th draft.
I had moved it and upped it. In talking to Rick, I had thought the number would have been 27, but
Yep.
I had moved it in anticipation that that might have been where the decision went, but obviously it's sort of staying.
Well, what you're kind of doing is you're utilizing some of the other monies to help offset the other 2 grand that you're saving 2 grand, but that's kind of where you're looking at.
So what do you accomplish for 25,000, Rick, if we put this through?
A safe track that's gonna be smooth all the way around. It's gonna give you another probably good 6 years.
So what
5, 6
exactly
years.
are you gonna do for the 25,000? Could you just review it, because you gave us all scenarios?
Yes, I'm sorry. What that would do is it would give you 2 inches of new asphalt completely all the way around the whole track.
Prior to cutting and filling all the cracks?
And that would be separate, yes.
But what, would you cut and fill the cracks first?
First, yes,
Then repave the track,
yes.
but no striping?
The striping is what the school would look at, putting in their kicking in their 25, because that's about what, it's
So
expensive to do
so
that.
would you be kicking in 31,000, Rick?
Technically, I guess, yes.
6,000 out of your revolving fund to do the crack filling, 25,000 from CIP
Yes.
for the resurfacing,
Yes,
and then the
So-
school kicks in 25,000 for striping and whatever.
yes.
So I really should list it on here as 31 then, and in the offsetting revenues,
Yes.
Six
That's
thousand.
where I was
Should-
going
Should
with
it, or
it.
is that revolving fund maintenance money, in which case it doesn't show?
There's
but-
all kinds of language, I guess, to be debated in future years with that, but,
So what we're
Uh,
looking at is a 31,000,
because the other option, Tim, is, if I may, I'm sorry to
ahead, please.
interrupt, I apologize.
no, get the floor.
Is, what the commissioners also said is, let's build $6,000 into our 2013 operating budget for that crack repair. That was the other option that the commissioners came up with too. But knowing that, that may not be the logical way to do it with the different levels of cuts and all that stuff,
Well, that's a bridge that we won't cross.
I'm just putting it on the table.
So, Brian, what we need to show is what you stated. We need to show a proposed CIP amount of 25,000. You're gonna show in the offsetting revenue, you're gonna show the revolving fund, 6,000. So the number needs to go up to 31,000 with a $6,000
Okay.
offsetting revenue.
Right.
Or the number needs to go up to 31 and 25 is
56.
56, with 2 offsetting revenues, one the school and one the revolving fund.
I don't know how you write that.
Well,
right.
I think Brian does.
Okay.
So the total project should be $56,000.
And that'll be in the 2013.
13.
Yes.
So it needs to go to 56 for 2013.
The 6,000 comes from
Revolving.
Parks and Rec revolving fund, is that?
Yes.
6,000 from then, and then 25,000 from the school
School district.
as a shared expense.
Rick, will that upgrade the track sufficiently for,
I-
for the NHIAA?
I think, you know, it's pretty convoluted. By right, NHIAA, you need the material, you need the track material. What it's gonna allow is it's gonna allow you to have a safe, smooth surface for a pretty decent period of time, 5, 6 years, before we can allow us to give us time to make a decision of what's gonna happen. Does this new stadium complex come into play? You know, I mean, that truly is, to me, the big thing.
And I just checked the sheet, excuse me for interrupting you. The school does not have that on until 2014,
Yeah, I think, right, I think we're all probably.
which
gonna
means
shift.
there's gonna be a gap year in there. The school's still gonna need a facility. So they may agree to spend $25,000 to get this repaired to be able to be used. And then, because as I remember, once they chip in that money, they're gonna wanna be able to use this for practices and overflow.
Which they will.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I
they
mean-
are sharing in the expense of it, which is good.
Absolutely. And I think what it really is in true words, it's kind of a Band-Aid to get you through some economic times that
It is a
are
Band-Aid.
not good. But it's not safe and somebody can get hurt, so you
That's a
gotta at least
Band-Aid.
do something to get you some time.
So
And,
Rick, then the
uh,
27,000 that Brian has written in for 14 would come out completely, right, Brian?
Yeah, I'll cross that
Yes.
off, and
So it's
13.
56 and 56.
And where,
I'll have a discussion with the school, with Ray Labor,
So, and you are gonna,
about this other offsetting revenue from schools.
Yes.
What that would be listed as.
Okay.
Because I don't
where
know.
does the school have that, Tim?
they don't, this is something he's
They
proposing.
don't have it at all.
The 25,000?
Yeah,
This is on a wing and a prayer right now from a
Right.
discussion.
Yeah.
because you said they had something in.
If you go to page 9,
Thank you.
Add-
Sorry for
that's
being
an
so-
added song
I'm just
in
an
there.
upfront person, and if people don't like me, send me home, I don't care.
Page 9.
Page 9, line 323,
What are classrooms?
324. Track field facility construction bond. It goes out to
All right, I
2014.
see what you're saying. All right, that's
So-
for bonding the new track, I guess.
Which means they wouldn't even have it started until 14. It wouldn't even be constructed till 15.
Maybe.
So in the next 2 years, the school's gonna need a place to be able to
Right.
have track and field
Yeah.
events.
Exactly.
So it would be to behoove them to put 25,000 into it.
It's cheap insurance.
Yeah.
Yes. So then, we have a CIP priority from Parks as a 1. We're gonna stick with that, right?
Yes,
As it is.
please.
So, let's vote on our CIP priority because we didn't have it in.
I think it's a 1.
I think it's a 1. Does everybody concur? Okay, we're gonna leave it as a 1, Brian,
One checking question.
please.
The 6 or 7 grand for the minimum, this is probably a budget committee question, but the minimum repair, just cracks only, what would be the lifespan of that?
I couldn't answer that question, Ivan. I mean, just logically, I guess, look at it,
Well,
think what you're doing. You're just taking, you know, a 3-foot wide span, cutting it out, putting some new stone and all that, and putting some asphalt over that. So what is the lifespan of that? I
No,
don't
but
know.
the
if
lifespan, excuse me, I can answer that question, Ray. The lifespan is, wherever you have a crack under the new pavement, you'll have a crack in a few years.
Few years, not 1 year.
It could be 1 year, the frost could lift it and crack it that 1 year. The only way to get rid of the cracks is to remove all the asphalt and put 2 new courses of asphalt. In other words, have a continuous ribbon, then it will not crack until time and elements and weather cracks it. But frost, where you have a saw cut to make a patch,
I
let's say this table's to patch. When you have a saw cut by your book right there, when this piece lifts up and that piece stays a little lower, they're gonna change differently, you're gonna get a crack where the old line is.
Asking, is this a cost avoidance for the future? It's a budgeting question, I guess.
And
I think you're probably right. Yes.
And I,
Because I don't think anybody's in the state right now where you can take the 175 or the 300 and say, do it the right way.
No.
That would never go anywhere. I'd ask you that as the budget rep and say, I come to you and I say, we need 170,000.
I know a drainage and the
Yeah.
proper way to do something in the
Yeah.
lifespan versus the shortcuts.
So I think it definitely is a Band-Aid, that's for sure.
And let's face it, if you just put 2 inches of asphalt over it without doing the saw cut and crack filling, then you're gonna wind up with a crack in a year.
Even sooner.
The saw cut and crack filling is a proper way to make a repair prior to an overlay.
Do you do
That's-
personal driveways?
All right.
All right.
So if that's all we had for Rick, Brian?
Uh,
Does anybody else have any
So-
other questions on this subject? Lowell, anybody?
just a note, I'll make, I spoke to Rick about the vehicle portion of his matrix,
Yeah?
and we'll update that for next year.
What's going on over there? We'll get to that
It
page.
just really doesn't have any kind of numbers for the out years at all. And so, I know he's got some vehicles that should be planned for in the future, and just to
A
look at
ways out,
those,
a ways out.
just to look at
But-
those in the future and plug some numbers in on the outer years if they need to be
Parks and
replaced.
Rec,
Basically, I think they're probably their dump truck, their 3/4 pickup, and what is now the Ford Escape,
Right.
those 3.
well, Rick, I think you should plan on putting a placeholder in for your 3/4 ton Chevy pickup to 2,000. You should have a placeholder in somewhere
Okay.
in it for the future, just so you don't have an empty.
The other question you asked of me the last time I was here was about like your mowers and things like that. Those are like $9,000. So does
They should-
that go in there?
They should be in CIP.
That should be in there? I thought it was
Anything that has a
25.
value, what's our cut?
It's 25,000.
25,000.
Or a wheeled
Vehicles.
vehicle with a lifespan of a minimum of 5 years.
Which would be the mower, right, okay. Because that, actually, we have to put that in there. I'll put that in next year.
Rick, between you and me, if you can keep them in the budget and get them passed through the budget, you're better off.
Okay,
Because those are the kind of things that are better off to replace through the budget than they are to be replaced through CIP. Because all the stuff, well, these will go into the budget ultimately. They don't always go on
Yeah.
as a warrant article.
Mhm.
But I don't,
You just list them in a different spot on your worksheet.
do we need to muck up
Make a
the
request.
matrix with more vehicles with lawnmowers?
Well, it's on there already.
Yeah, right.
Ride-on mower,
Ride-on
yeah.
mower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's already in there then.
But there's just never been anything on the.
Cause you
dollar
just got a
figures.
brand new one, didn't you, or something, and,
no, we got a new trailer,
oh, okay.
new trailer. Got a new truck tomorrow.
Almost got it with a plow, right?
Yep.
Sounds like a mistake.
Yeah, it was a big mistake.
All right, let's not talk about that. So what you should do is you should look to the future, and instead of having a sector for your vehicles, which is nothing, you need to start filling out some paperwork.
will do.
So that you have some sort of an idea of what kind of a schedule you want to replace the stuff on, so that it is plugged in, because your 2,000 certainly should be plugged in at least 2015 or something, maybe even
Right.
sooner,
Okay,
so that you can attempt to rotate it out of the fleet and get something better,
I got you.
unless you're gonna wait for another hand-me-down. You could get one.
Good.
Like, you could get one of those,
We don't mind hand-me-downs. We don't mind it.
I don't mind them either. I take them where I work. I got about 7 of them. All right, that's it, Brian, for Parks and Rec?
Yep.
Thank you, Rick, for coming in on your night off.
No, it was great. It was it was an interesting one. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
Rick,
you.
thank you. All right, so our order of business would be to review anything that anybody had questions on, or are we prepared to send a matrix to the planning board?
I am very concerned about the bottom lines on the matrix.
Okay?
Not that there's a hell of a lot we can do about it, but, if we look at,
What page are you on?
let's just go to page 3, bottom line, line 129.
What matrix are you in? 6th draft?
6th draft.
I don't have 129 on page 3.
I do.
I do.
You don't?
No.
Who doesn't? Do you have it on page draft, the top of page 4 maybe?
Here, I'll give another one for you right here, hang on.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I have
line
it.
129.
Well, that's why the numbers weren't,
Yeah, your pagination is different for some reason.
that's a fancy word.
Here, this one does have it.
Take the top sheet back. Leave it back over there, please.
In the ballpark.
All right, now,
Just-
I'm gonna return to page 3. Yes, I have it at the bottom now.
Okay. We are proposing 3.5 times what the adopted budget was last year.
Mm-hmm,
And I know we're not a budget committee.
mm-hmm,
And I know this thing is gonna get whacked
mm-hmm.
by the budget committee and by the selectmen. But we have to look at this thing and say, my God, that is a very, very significant increase
Mm-hmm.
from what has happened in the past.
Is that because the adopted budget is abnormally low?
Well, I
or-
think that may
I,
have something
I
to
think
do
that
with it.
does factor into it.
Yeah.
It's
Because
the result of 3 years of snowball effect,
Yes,
or longer.
yeah, I mean, but even,
But I mean, if you look at the numbers on that same page, Earl, if you go out, you start running out, you got 1.3 the next year. No, that's
Yeah.
1.3, that's 13.
it's actually 1.286 is the approved number for CIP. And then
Yeah.
it jumps up actually in 14 and
To
back down.
1.69.
6.9.
We're at 1.296 right now, Earl. It
Right.
started out at 1.63.
Yeah, so we've.
We hacked out 400,000, or 350,000. Which isn't a lot, but still, what's 350,000 against 1.6? That's 20%.
That essentially evened out the numbers a little bit better throughout the 6-year period. You know, you're looking at
16's a kind of a light year at 725,
yeah, I mean,
but
that's,
that's,
Yeah, and I,
but don't forget, that'll get filled up as time goes by, don't?
and I will say that last year, before the other folks got into this thing, we had approved 1,261,000.
Okay.
1,286,000, so we're in line with what we've done in the past.
We're not raising the stakes
No, we are not.
significantly.
Yeah, and we've.
Because we did move a bunch of vehicles.
Right.
We didn't hit the police department very hard. We moved one
Well,
car.
what we did is we moved out one cruiser, but gave them the command post.
Right.
Which is the equivalent of almost 3 cruisers in terms of a bottom line dollar amount.
Fire, we left alone, basically.
Yep.
One big number in fire is our capital reserve fund, at 250,000.
Right.
That's a pretty large number.
And that would make a significant difference. That's not something that is shown
That
in,
that would lower,
that's been
that's,
shown before. That would lower us to just a shade over $1 million.
right. Now
the thing about that capital reserve fund was that it sort of evened out the spending, and actually allowed the fire department to collect money for, if they got grants for those apparatus that,
Yeah.
came along, so.
It does work that way. Except that the voters have not approved it in the last 3 votes, is it? Was it 4 years ago they approved it? I believe it was.
I think so.
Huh?
I think 3 or 4.
I think it was 4 years ago they approved it, and they've rejected it since.
Right.
Because don't forget, fire has on their, fire's not expensive on their vehicles right now, but if you go to their capital projects, they have quite a bit on the capital projects.
We're looking at all 3 stations.
Yeah, and the number's 3 million plus.
Right, because of the renovations that they want to do.
Well, that's what they want to do. So,
And it's something that needs to be done sooner or later anyway.
well, it's a bond.
Right.
It's not an appropriation for this, it's a bond. There's no bond repayment schedule shown for that, is there? We
Yeah,
would
there
know.
is. It is. It's on line 173.
Yep.
It's just on the same line as the bond itself.
Oh.
So you
So
put
it's a
the,
250,000 that,
it's 200, yeah, essentially 250,000 every year
for how many?
for 20 years.
That's a fire truck every 2 years.
So there's a $250,000 payment for this, and then there's a $250,000 payment for vehicles, and that 500,000 covers fire department.
Okay.
Essentially.
You have any other concerns you want to voice, Earl?
No. There's not much you can do about it anyway.
I mean, we hacked Public Works pretty hard. We moved a bunch of stuff out. We left some stuff in, but we did move some stuff out.
Yes, we did.
I mean, we could move that loader out if you really want to lower the bottom line on that, in that deal. That's a $200,000 number.
Yeah.
We left
Problem
it.
is, but even as you said, Tim, 17,000 hours on a loader is
A lot of
a
hours.
lot of hours.
It is. It doesn't make it no good, it just makes it a lot of hours. And I'll make the argument to my Board of Selectmen that at that hours, you are running the risk of spending $40,000 on a repair bill, on something like that. Now, you can do that. Oh, Ivan?
A question, you made the remark that you're a DPW guy, you get a lot of hand-me-downs. Does our DPW get a lot of hand-me-downs? If we need a loader, do we need everything brand new?
Well, you don't get hand-me-down loaders, my friend.
So your hand-me-downs
We
are
get
the
like an old
inexpensive
we have
stuff,
an old couple old fire trucks and a car and stuff like that.
but not the big ticket items?
Nothing big ticket.
Okay.
Just like here, Ivan, the DPW, most of their automobiles, as opposed to trucks, the cars are hand-me-downs from police.
And the building inspector gets a hand-me-down from fire or PD.
Yeah.
You know,
And
these
one
kind
of
of, Parks
Rick
gets a hand-me-down.
down, yeah.
But you know what? They're not using them as a first-line vehicle. They're using them as an accessory vehicle to their department needs.
Right.
They don't run it every day.
When I visited the DPW, now I didn't go through them specifically truck by identity, they weren't all there when I was there, but my overall impression is, I mean, the paint wasn't even off the frame. They looked extraordinarily in good condition, the trucks that I saw.
That's a result of budgets being not passed, and you have to take good care of your stuff in order to make it last. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not time to trade it in. It just means,
Fortunately, Carl has got a couple of very good mechanics over there.
He has extraordinary mechanics and he's an extraordinary looking shop, but again, I mean,
I think they also have a paint
looked-
program.
they looked really good.
I expect that they have a refurbishment program as part of their budget, which I'm not sure. Which
Just-
means they have money set aside to send a truck out to have sandblasting and painting done.
Yes, absolutely, there's
As
no ifs,
opposed
ands, or
to
buts.
buying new trucks all the time. But that's
But
just,
that's a good thing,
that's extending the life of the vehicle.
yeah.
And that's become a necessity with the budgets the way they've been going. But you have to have the funding to do that.
That's-
I'm not gonna have this discussion.
Just a
Okay.
point of information also. You had asked Carl to provide department priorities on the vehicles.
Yeah.
Last we saw, they were all twos. And so I updated what he gave me. He did send it in. And so you'll see some twos and threes in there. Whatever he gave me that was higher than a two, I just added that straight onto the CIP priority, CIP committee priority column as well. But if you wanted to go in and change any of those back, like for example on the loader, you were saying, you know, he changed it to a 3 on that one actually.
He also changed the Freightliner tractor to a 3,
So
the
I mean,
first one. Well, let's,
you may go through that and reconsider some of the stuff that he's shown as priorities.
well, let's go to page 2, everybody. The first one, line 55, we left it in at 118, now it's an appropriate, as a 3, that means it's deferrable, right? What does 3 mean, deferrable?
Yes.
Does it mean that?
Desirable.
Desirable.
Four is
Okay.
deferrable.
Move down to line 63, the loader we just spoke about, that's a 3 now at 200,000. The 90,000 for the Caterpillar grader, which is a recon to repair the motor and paint it and such at 90,000, that's also now a 3.
On the other hand,
So that means that,
he's got, if you go to line 61, he's got that in as a 1. His 10-wheeler.
we left it in.
Did he have that as a 1 on the other matrix?
Hitting the darn thing.
Or is that 2?
That's
They were
Sterling.
all twos, they were all
They were all
twos on
twos.
the other one.
That's Sterling, I think that's the one that's got frame issues. if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he had it as a 2. We left it as a 2.
Mhm.
But we also left it in the matrix form.
Right.
Well, do we want to vote to move something else in this line to bring that number down to $1 million or thereabouts on the vehicles? We would bring it down from we've got 1,286, is that what that number is?
286.
Well,
Question?
Please,
That cat-
Mark.
That cat loader, is that the one that spends time in the yard, or is that the one that's out on the road? Do you know?
that's the one that's out on the road, Carl told us.
Okay.
At least that's what he told us.
Okay, no,
Well, conversely, that's the one that's in the yard in the wintertime that loads the sand and
correct.
salt.
Yeah.
But that's the one he said you see down on a road job in Pinardville. Because the John Deere, I do know, has a plow route. From seeing it around town.
Again, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because, this year, we're at 1,286,000. Next year, we're at 1,000,007. So if you move something out one year, then you've got this whole ripple effect.
Except
Which
we've
we've
got
gotta
all the
deal
way
with.
out to 2015 to add 300,000 to 2015.
And 2016 is lower.
It sure looks like that the matrix is gonna run at 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 million, just to steady the
Yeah.
ship here.
Yeah, my
We
gut
could-
reaction is, even though I'm not thrilled,
Well, we could
Is
take
to-
one
is
of
to
the
leave it
smaller
alone.
ones, or we could take one of the smaller ones out. We could take the 90 out for the Caterpillar grader recon, or the 118 out for the tractor replacement, because they're both 3s.
Yeah.
And that does not cripple them, it just lowers our bottom line. But what do you do with it?
Would you move it out just 1 year or
Yes,
move
I'd
it
have to
out
mo-
several?
I'd have to move it
Well-
out 2.
But we're looking at stuff we moved, then we have to take the 14 stuff and move that,
Right. And that's what I'm saying, just leave it.
becomes
Right, it has a whole ripple effect to
it
it.
does have a ripple effect.
I'm in favor of leaving it.
I think we'll leave it alone.
I mean, we could play the game, let's see.
But again, are we a budget committee?
16 is the year that we're light.
Mhm.
So if we took a $100,000 vehicle and moved it to 16, for instance, line 78, the 2004 Ford dump, just for a discussion. Slide that all the way out 2 more
Or-
years. Then move something over, if you move that 90 over then to the year that was taken out, then that number stays virtually unchanged.
Or you push out the line 66, the backhoe.
The backhoe. That is the machine that they use at the transfer station just to handle the debris.
Mhm.
Push all the.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really not a,
break it.
Of course, you still got the backhoe listed as a 2 compared to the 3 for the other ones.
that's true. Then the 61,000 for the Spec Tech trailer is a 3, that's in 2014.
81,000.
81,000. Mike, I
81,000.
gotta get my glasses fixed here. 81,000. And even that 2000 Ford F-550 dump is still a 3 that I just spoke to on line 78. You got 70,000 for a skid steer, that's a 3. You've got a Freightliner dump that is in 2015 at 172,000, that's a 3. And I think it's a 3 because it's out there right now. It doesn't need to be replaced this year, that's why it's a 3. We'd have to look at numbers that he designated as a 3 this year, and
True.
then deal with the ripple effect. If you want to leave it, the committee can handle it, upcoming committee. I mean, we're gonna be kicked to the curb anyway, so
Let's leave it.
leave it alone.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
We'll let Ivan and his clan and Mark and his clan deal with it.
And if you finish off the rest of the columns, there's nothing to deal with, really.
Right.
Do we want to eliminate the 250,000 for the capital reserve fund for the fire department?
No.
No,
Okay?
I mean, it may not pass
Well, that's gonna go as a,
voter, you know, it may not pass as a warrant.
well, that goes a warrant article?
Yeah.
I would imagine it would.
yes, yes,
Yeah, there'd definitely be a warrant
yeah.
article.
All right, then let's move over to page 4. We're over to the admin. We left the Grassmere siding project in, from what it looks like.
Yep.
We moved the master plan update out, but left the software in, which I think is necessary.
Software is necessary. They're moving forward on that. I guess they're gonna be doing, an RFP will go out. They did an RFI, request for information. That came back in. RFP, request for proposals, is due to go out, if memory serves me correctly, right after Labor Day.
Okay.
And with 30-day deadline,
I'd like, okay,
so that, there's a very high probability that that money will be necessary probably right around the first of the year.
you good?
That's even before any of this would be.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not saying all of it will be necessary, but I think, depending on what they get back on the proposals and what it's gonna cost for implementation. And really, 300,000 is a placeholder. We don't know right now if we're looking at 250 or 500.
Well, yeah, they got an average based on other towns and their
Correct.
needs. But you know how that stuff goes. All right, and then down at the bottom of that is line 140 is the rail trail construction, it's 395. But if you read the memo, it's that 56,400, which is gonna be taken,
No, that's for an out year.
what's for an out year?
The 58,400.
395 represents the cost of the TE grant to do the 3 sidewalks and the gully at Old Henry Bridge alignment.
Right, so that's the only thing on this year.
The anticipate total remaining cost of 292.
Which is in 2015.
You can see right below, there's the offsetting revenues
Yeah,
that
actually, it looks like
equal.
you forgot to move the grant there on 145 to go with that.
Oh, that's supposed to go out to,
Yeah, it's supposed to go to
2015.
Wow.
Yep, you're right. The 233,600.
What are you looking at? What page? What
Line 145.
Or line
Anticipated
140,
TE grant?
line 145.
Yeah, previously we had moved the amount on line 140 from 2014 to 15, and that,
The 233,600?
No, the 292 on line 140.
under,
We
Yes,
moved that
292.
out to, from 14 to 15.
It is there now.
It
Right,
is there.
Right, that happened last meeting, and an offsetting revenue for that project would be the 233,600 that's listed on line 145.
Well,
So
that
I
needs
need,
to
I
be
I need to move it
that needs
to
to be moved as well.
2015.
And the 395, 360 number represents the TE grant. And how much of it did we have to match for 25%?
It's the 79,000 is the
Yeah,
And where's that-
79072.
And where's the 79072 on here?
44.
Line 144, okay. Now, this is where I have a little bit of a complaint, and I know Lowell's on the committee, and no disrespect to you, Lowell, but way back when this whole project was presented to the taxpayers, it was presented, it was gonna be all volunteer, there was gonna be no tax money involved.
That's not
Granted.
a tax money.
Granted, it is not a tax money, but it's still money that should have been used for other purposes, as far as I'm concerned. Because it's a lot of money, you could, how far that could have gone for all these projects that Rick has in here for the parks and the playgrounds and the pools and all that other stuff that he has to ask money for, so. I would hope that this would be the last time we use impact fees to get a grant. That's just my personal opinion. All right, got all our offsetting revenues. The library is next to nothing. Police software and hindsight recorder, we're leaving them alone, as we discussed.
And there's always the potential for some grant money coming in on that.
Actually, the chief told me, I had a discussion with the fire chief, and he told me that he's doing some grant work, and the IMC software may come under the umbrella for that grant. So we're gonna have to wait and see how that goes. Fire departments, station upgrades, a bond.
Right.
Have a good day. We've been through the Parks and Rec stuff. I don't think there's anything there that's out of the question. We reduced it by 100,000, which was in effect 30% of what he asked for. And then all the public works, capital projects, we left a lot of them in. We took some of them out. We actually left that whole page right in. Page 5 didn't even get touched, right?
Yeah, we basically reduced what he wanted by about 300,000, 300,000.
Yeah, we moved the
10,000.
reconstruct Main Street
And the pipe
design
inspection.
out because it's in the 10-year road plan and DOT doesn't have any money.
Yeah.
And the, what was
Pipe
the other
inspection
one?
camera equipment,
Yeah,
line 221.
75,000. What's happening with, the CMAC grant for Pleasant Street roundabout?
Well, that, we're keeping that in, but it did get delayed by 1 year due to the
Right,
failure of the budget.
well, we're talking about in this year, I'm not talking about last year. Is it available this year?
It's still available, yeah.
Is it a one-year extension or a multi-year, a continuing extension?
Well, no, we have to do the project within like a 3-year period,
Okay.
so, if we don't, then we end up probably having to forfeit the grant.
And I don't think we can count on the Bog Road $150,000 as offsetting revenue at any time.
It's,
It's
I'm
anticipated,
listening it because it's anticipated, but, and that's the way
but anticipated
Showed
is
it.
when the project starts and the guy ponies up the money. In the meantime, if the thing passes, the taxpayers are gonna have to foot the 150, and then they'll get it back later when it comes in. So that anticipated grant there, or anticipated improvement fee, I don't know if that should be included because we don't have the money, and I don't anticipate it in the near future. That's just another point for people to consider. That's $4.4 million. We only reduced it by a paltry $300,000, less than 10%.
That's right.
That's not very much.
Well, the one thing that I wanted to point out with this, the rest of the matrix was that if you look in the out years, it's actually the total on page 9, including the schools.
Okay.
If you look at the total for the approved CIPC, it's 6,351,558.
Yep.
You look at the outer years, and
Yeah.
you're actually higher, and that's kind of opposite of what it typically has been in the past. Typically, the first 2 years have been sort of snowballed with a bunch of money, and the out years are a little, high and dry on anything really for spending. This way, it's opposite. We've got 6 million as the total net spending, and then it jumps to 9, 7, almost 8
So
for
the
a few
percentages you're
years.
showing, Brian, are they the change from this year's number? So the 9 million is a 42% increase over what would be proposed for this year?
Yes.
Right,
And then the 7,986,000 is an 11%
decrease from that year.
From the year prior.
Yeah.
Right, from the 9 million.
Yeah, so those numbers are kind of funny to, if you
So-
follow me.
Well, but if you look at it, 11%, minus 11%, minus 3%, minus 5%, up 25%, they're all kind of even, whereas you look at this year, it's like 172%, The year from, what it was proposed at was 210% of last year's budget, or this year's budget. really.
Adopted budget.
Adopted budget, yeah. So, I mean, it's a drastic change from what was adopted to this year, to 2013. And then it sort of slows down on the increase to the next year, but then it remains steady on out.
Up until 18, when it jumps 25%.
Again, when you compare the bottom line to last year, this year we've approved 6,351. Last year, we approved 5,687. So we're only about $700,000 more than last year, with a lot of that coming in under town side.
Yeah, well, 300 of it is, well, yeah.
It's essentially money that didn't get spent on this year's budget because it didn't pass, and, all the warrant articles that didn't
Yeah,
pass.
none of the warrant articles passed, and a lot of that stuff is being brought up again.
Fact. Well, we're not gonna discuss that either.
I mean, there's,
So I just want a general consensus. Does this committee feel like that we should send this along to the planning board?
I don't think we have a whole lot of option.
We'll go around the table, everybody gets a say. Anybody want to
That-
speak
that's
up?
my
Earl's
thought.
not- Earl figured we don't have a lot of options. Who's next?
Send it along, yes.
I agree.
Yes.
And
Brian,
I'm always the one that always says I think we can do more. But I don't think we have options. I think we are the victims of the years and years of the snowball effect at this committee level.
Yep.
Because the needs have continued, but they haven't been funded.
Right, they don't go away just because you're.
They don't go away just because you don't fund them.
and, I'm concerned, and again, nothing we can do about it. I don't want the town to get into the same position we were in about, 10, 12 years ago? When you look at the fire vehicles and the DPW vehicles, and they've been putting off so many things for so long that it all collapsed at once.
Well, we're not far away from that, unfortunately. All the towns in New Hampshire. I think there's very few towns that are not in that. It depends how they do things. And I will speak to that point, Earl, in that I think when the town of Goffstown stopped doing capital reserve savings accounts, because people didn't want us as a town to be taxing and saving money, I think that is the wrong approach, because if you, as a citizen, want to buy a home or want to buy a boat or want to buy a car, most citizens will save money until they can afford to buy it.
I agree with you.
They don't say, I want a new car, I'm just gonna go out and borrow $40,000 tomorrow and buy it,
Right.
because it's not sustainable.
Because they know what they can borrow, and if they can only borrow 20,000, then they know they've got to come up with 20,000 cash,
So-
which they have to save for.
I think I may, with the committee's permission, once again, suggest that we need to take a hard look at the way the capital improvement program is funded. We may need to try to go back to the capital reserve funds saving program to try to put away a little here and a little there, so that when it does come time to buy something, at least you have something.
I agree wholeheartedly. A perfect example of that is what we were able to do with the fire department capital reserve. When the chief went out and got his $1 million tower truck.
Yeah.
Just a perfect, we had a capital reserve fund. It had about $420-something thousand in it. he got a 70-30 matching grant, but he wouldn't have gotten anything if he didn't have the 30%. So we had the $300,000. He was able to get the truck for $700,000 because he got the grant. We only spent $300,000 for a $1 million truck. Last year, he bought the pumper tanker, $550,000.
But we had 140 left, I think, in this capital reserve fund.
Exactly. And because we were able to come up with that 140,000, he was able to get a discount of over $50,000 on the price of the equipment.
Well,
Because we had that money up front. And
The only other way to do it is if you can find a way to let the taxpayers vote to build the budget up
but so
to a
much of this,
point where you would budget for $500,000 a year for DPW vehicles, and it would be up to the department head to decide how he wants to spend $500,000 a year on vehicles. And that would be a one-time expenditure that taxpayers would have to take and absorb, because, well, it goes into your taxes this year, then it stays in. It's like when the road plan was voted into the budget, you know?
and this is part of educating the voters, educating the taxpayer.
All right,
That,
well,
that voting down the capital reserve funds is penny wise and pound foolish.
it's not capital reserve funding anymore, it's appropriate and spend, and I think people are scared off by the big numbers.
Exactly, and that's why the capital reserve funding becomes so important.
All right, any other discussion?
I'm just gonna add one of the things that makes it harder to get that going again is that when you're so far behind, it's, the double whammy because you got to spend more money to catch up and you want to start funding capital reserve at the same time. So
Right, the
it
first
makes it extra hard.
the first 4 years is very difficult.
Right.
All right. Anybody else want, or Ivan, please?
I mean, you can editorialize this a whole number of ways, and I mean, the budget committee, there's always 2 points of view, there's multiple points of view, but would it surprise us if there were a lot of taxpayers in town that are underwater, they don't have the pensions, you're almost, it's a huge subject that needs to be looked at from a big picture. Because when you're talking like fire and the safety departments, 80–90% of the budget is not equipment, it's compensation. When you go to DPW, 65% of the budget is equipment. I mean, there's 2 or 3 different things there. But when costs are doubling every decade and people are confronted with paying potentially $10,000, $12,000 a year in taxes, that gets people's attention.
The
I
option,
And
will-
that's
I will- I
another
will-
perspective.
I will tell you that the answer to that dilemma is to cut services.
yeah, I would say, then you have to cut services.
And if people are gonna be willing to stay home for an extra 10 hours on a snowstorm because the roads don't
I
get
know.
plowed, then you know what? That's the end
I
result.
know. We need to work together as a community to find a way to resolve this. And everybody, yes, we have these discussions in the budget committee ad nauseum, year after year, like, and you're not talking money. We focus more on the money. But, yes, people do not want to see a decrease in services, and yes, people want to see a decrease in property taxes. So, all right, you guys, go do it. Go meet and talk and lower our taxes and do not touch our services. That's the challenge. And we tie up 8 people here. This goes to how many on planning? Then it goes to 5 or 6 selectmen, then it goes to 15 on budget committee. So we tie up 25, 30, 35 people for months who spend thousands of dollars of their money to volunteer and thousands of hours of their time.
I hear
What's
everything
the
you're
answer?
saying.
Huh?
I hear what you're saying.
I just wanted to editorialize, and
That's
there's
fine.
no answers in that comment.
I know I stop you other nights, but tonight you get to do it.
I appreciate that.
It's our last night.
In your email, you said you set this up for planning board presentation for 2 weeks from today.
16.
Yes.
I have to write the report, and I will do my best to do it soon so that I can give everybody a copy of it prior to the meeting.
And I'll update the.
Basically a
matrix.
synopsis.
I'll update the matrix with these few minor
And
changes.
as usual, everybody that's on the committee is invited to attend that planning board meeting and sit in and listen to it. It will be first on the agenda, Brian, or near the front of the agenda. We have Southern New Hampshire Planning that night.
I'm not sure. I think we're actually gonna have it after the regular items.
Why?
Isn't that kinda how the board wanted it to
Well,
be?
I'm
with
just thinking of these
presentations of
members,
that
I'm just
nature?
thinking of other members of this committee that volunteer their time if they would like to attend the planning board meeting.
I would like to attend.
I don't know,
I
last,
will, I
last year,
will be
we-
here.
last year we had it up front.
Yeah, I understand.
we did-
I just know that when the planning board voted on the rules and procedures and stuff, they wanted presentations that didn't have to do with, applicants and their attorneys and everybody else, making them wait, because they're making people pay their
Well,
attorneys
who's
for
coming,
longer to sit there.
who's on the agenda that night? Southern New Hampshire Planning.
PSNH has a substation,
This is,
request.
and that's a acceptance hearing.
Well, if you
It's an
wanna
acceptance
do,
hearing.
yeah, if you wanna do just acceptance, that's fine.
What else?
There's, the Coughlin, Jim Coughlin
Time extension.
extension.
He represents himself, he can wait.
And then there's the, there's something else. I can't think of it right now.
Well, I would,
There's
I
one other
would,
thing.
I would request that you make this CIP thing first. We'll get it over with, we'll get it out of the way. Members of this committee that would like to come will already donate their time all summer. And to
Okay.
have to sit through a planning board meeting till 9:30 at night to sit and hear the CIP presentation, I think that would be unfair.
So that's
No.
a special meeting, so that's not a normal planning board.
It's a planning board meeting night.
No, it is a planning board meeting. Oh, no, we shifted it.
'Cause that's-
We moved our nights around.
Oh, so you moved the meeting for the 9th to the 16th?
We moved we
Yes.
have a single August meeting for the planning board, and we're having it on the 16th.
Yes.
We're just in line with all the other action items? I mean,
No, we're
there's not a
trying-
dedicated evening for this?
No, it's just part of the regular agenda.
Here's what we came up with.
Basically, the planning board will not have a long-winded discussion
they
over it.
won't.
Alan Yaton had something to say last year,
He went on and on last year.
and then he voted to volunteer to be on the committee, and I was hoping for some positive input from him. So, basically, it's not a
It's
rubber,
just a
it's not so much a rubber stamp. I give a report, planning board members have an opportunity to ask questions of me and the vice chair, and then any other members of the committee are open to speak if there's a question to be answered. But procedurally, they rely on this committee to present the matrix complete to them, and then they generally approve it and send it on to the boards. I don't ever remember in my time here ever having the planning board change anything.
Yeah, we did probably,
I do remember
What was it,
a
about
couple of
six- about-
times
about 7 or
minor
8
things getting
What
changed.
did we change?
we had the brouhaha maybe 7, 8 years ago on the Conservation Commission
Yeah, that was.
Capital Reserve, where,
We haven't heard from them since.
no, we haven't, where I believe we took out their capital reserve, and then the planning board voted it back in or the other way around.
I remember that.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it was the first one.
Yeah, we took it out and they planning board put it back in.
I remember.
But I think that's the only time I can remember of any significant.
So I would not
Change.
expect it to be a long meeting, presentation, and, I mean, I have generally keep my reports short and sweet, 1.5 pages, 2 pages at the most. I just cover each department, I kind of outline what each department asked for. I talk about last year's bottom line, I talk about the approved budget, I talk about our suggested CIP for this year, and
Have you ever tried to get it done a week in advance and send it to them a week in advance?
oh, I would like to have the report prepared so Brian can send it to them in their packet.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's gonna happen or not, because he sends packets out next Monday,
No, next Friday.
next Friday. And today's what, Thursday? So I have
You got a week.
this week to get it ready. I should be able to get it ready by then. But I do have a job and, a life and family and planning board chairman, so I have some other things going on.
Is that all?
And you do vainly attempt to have a life.
I try. Doesn't happen all the time. So, the 16th, anyone is invited to come to the meeting. Any other discussion on our matrix at this time? Motion.
I move, we adjourn.
No, you gotta make a motion to,
That's right. I will withdraw my motion to adjourn.
nobody seconded it, so you're good to go.
That's true. I move that we submit the matrix based on the 6th draft as corrected by Brian to the planning board for its review on August 16th.
Along with any changes that have been made tonight.
Along,
I said as amended,
Well, the 6th draft was what you have in front of you,
right, and
so,
I said the 6th draft as amended.
okay.
okay, so Earl's motion is to send send this matrix on after tonight's, changes have been adjusted, put onto paper to, send it to planning board. Anybody want to second Earl's motion?
I just have a request.
Yes, sir.
On the distribution of your report, could that be sent to Phil Kendall, Budget Committee Chair, to be distributed to all Budget Committee members also?
Well, I would say that they could get the report, but they have no standing.
Oh, I got that, but I mean,
They can get a copy of it after the planning board adopts it, because there could be a change.
And again,
okay.
all this is, all his report is, Ivan, is a subcommittee report to the planning board. And so the budget committee has no standing to get a copy of an internal report. And until the planning board approves it, that's all it is.
I don't see how the Budget Committee can function without seeing this kind of data
Well, they
over the
will.
next
They'll
6
see
or
it
8.
after, they'll see it after the planning board approves it or denies it. After the August 16th meeting, you'll get the whole kit and caboodle.
The Budget Committee will get the whole.
Well, it goes to the selectmen, I think, next.
I don't recall getting it, that's why
Well, it goes to the selectmen first, Brian?
It's the matrix and, that report is available online even. It's on the CIP committee's
I
webpage.
understand that.
If that's the case, then the budget committee's got it.
And you're talking Phil Kendall as budget chairman or as school member?
No, as Budget Committee Chairman.
Okay. Well, we'll forward it to him, but I'm not gonna forward a report to him until after it's been accepted by the planning board.
I got that.
I'll be happy to, I'll have Brian copy it and send the whole package
See
over.
it.
Mark wants to say something.
Go.
No, I'm just, if you're done question, I will second the motion.
Okay, the motion's been seconded. You still have your discussion. The floor's not closed.
Oh,
I'm not stopping you. You got something to say? Say it.
no, I'll defer.
But they will get the report in due time, not prior, they will not get it prior to the,
Yeah, I understand it's available, but would it surprise you that the Budget Committee,
doesn't get it.
right?
Well, then,
Well,
yes, it would.
yeah, it's okay to, I have no problem submitting it to whoever on the budget committee for distribution,
Would
I
you
don't-
make it
I
a
don't
part of
think
your
that's a
motion that the report after the planning board?
Defined as it is.
Actually, that would be a separate
Separate motion?
motion, because
Okay.
right now, all I'm doing is I'm saying, we're submitting our matrix to the planning board.
Correct.
Okay,
It's a separate motion.
okay, motion's been made by Earl, seconded by Mark to submit the 6th draft to the planning board with changes that were made tonight. All those, any discussion of that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Chair votes yes, it passes. Now, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that the matrix also be forwarded to Phil Kendall stating at what phase it's at and for a recommendation to distribute it to the Budget Committee.
Okay, there's a motion by Ivan that the matrix And the report, or just the matrix only?
And your summary report, yes.
Okay, the
page
matrix and the
a half.
summary report be submitted to the Budget Committee, Phil Kendall, for his distribution to Budget Committee members. Anyone to second Ivan's motion? Mark seconded the motion. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm gonna oppose it because
Well, we're gonna vote.
well, no, there's discussion,
Okay.
and I'm gonna tell you why I'm gonna oppose it. First of all, I don't think it is our position as a subcommittee to release a subcommittee report to another committee other than the one that we report to,
Okay.
the planning board. Secondly, Ivan's motion doesn't say when that's gonna happen. If it's after the planning board approves it, I don't care, because there's nothing I can do about it at that point.
It's public information.
It's public information.
So would it be
But I
the,
think that until it is approved by the planning board, it is inappropriate to release it to another body.
well, that's what, I thought that's what Ivan was talking about, after it's been reviewed.
It is public information now.
It is, but I don't think that we can summarily submit it in whatever form officially to.
Would you, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
my
To-
brain pops into
Yeah,
gear.
I just don't think, I don't think it's a good thing to do.
Would you,
It'd be the same thing as us saying, the Conservation Commission saying to the Budget Committee, we want to see the entire budget before it gets approved by anybody.
Ivan, would it be acceptable to you that you would take my word and Brian's word for the fact that once the planning board does accept it and pass, and send it to committee, that we would make it our job to make sure that Phil Kendall gets the appropriate documents so that he doesn't get bypassed? Would that be acceptable to you?
Yeah, I just think it's something that's very beneficial to the Budget Committee, and it's just open communication, it's transparency,
Well,
and
then-
it's an attempt to work together.
In that light, then why wouldn't the budget committee take it upon itself to get the information? Why would it be our responsibility to give it to them?
There's a lot of questions that are,
All right, now what I'll need you to do then is, if you're gonna accept that as a avenue, would you withdraw your motion?
you're withdrawing your
I'll
second?
withdraw my second.
Yeah, I'll withdraw the.
Okay, the motion has been withdrawn. Motion and second have been withdrawn. Okay, now it's time for you, Earl.
All right. My typical motion to adjourn.
Motion by Earl to adjourn, seconded by Lowell. Does anyone have any discussion on this motion? All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So passes. Before we adjourn officially, I'd like to thank everyone in this committee for the time that they put into this. I know there's a lot of other things we'd all rather be doing at 10 minutes to 9 on Thursday night on a summer night, but it's a very important committee. I don't think we get the results we want that we send along, but that's not our prerogative to provide results. Our prerogative is to provide the information to the different committees and let them run with it.
Thanks for heading it up.
Thank you. Pleasure serving.
See if I get elected again, then maybe I'll be back.